All right. Okay, welcome everyone today to today's Conservation Education Lunch and Learn series. My name is Amber Schiltz. I'm with the Fish and Wildlife Education Division here at Nebraska Game and Parks. And we host this monthly webinar series just speaking to the best practices and theories and really great world of environmental education, conservation education, and connecting people to the outdoors. Today, I am so excited about our topic today and our speaker. I've been hoping to get someone to speak to this subject for a long time, so I'm very excited. So I'd like to introduce you to Tim Walsh. He's an outdoor educator and recovery coach trainer, and he specializes in guiding people through external and internal wilderness. Over the last 25 years, he's founded and led numerous programs and institutions in youth development and the addictions recovery and prevention fields. Tim advises and develops experiential education, adventure therapy, and substance misuse awareness programs for private schools, youth development programs, treatment centers, and national conferences. He's a pioneer in the field of adventure-based counseling, and he was one of the founding team members of Mountainside Treatment Center and served as executive director for Newport Academy. And he is currently serving and working for Adventure Recovery, which is the organization he speaks to you on behalf of today. So I'm really excited to hand it over to Tim. I think it's going to be a great discussion today. In just chatting with him before everyone came on, I asked him, what's your preference on questions? Do you want them at the end? And he said he's a big fan of just conversation. So if you have questions as we move through this, put them in the chat or unmute yourself, and we'll kind of get to it in more of a conversation type way today. For logistic purposes, I'll be hosting, so let me know if you need anything through that. In addition to that, I'm recording this session, so it will be available. And once the webinar is done, I will be emailing out everyone any resources that Tim might mention today, or maybe someone else mentions today, and also a link to the recording and an evaluation of today's program. So be watching for that. I think that's all the housekeeping. So Tim, I'm going to give it over to you. And I love that we already have really a lot of great discussion in the chat. That's pretty cool. So Tim, welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber. Can everybody hear me okay? I see Jamie and Amber. Everybody else has their screens off. So this is a challenging venue and modality for me, being an outdoor educator. I'm sitting in my truck. That's not my real environment behind me, though it is a real environment that I have a lot of experience in. So I just want to thank you all for being here and for engaging in this topic and in this way. And Amber, your dedication to this style of learning and the style of sharing information and creating this as a resource for the community is just phenomenal. I've gotten to look through a little bit of your library, and it's very impressive. So thank you for your service and for really taking advantage of some of the challenges that COVID put in front of us and turning them into something really valuable. So great job, and I look forward to watching more of these as they come up. So
thank you, Tim.
Oh, you bet. So just and a quick shout out to my friend Jamie Bachman, who's on there. Jamie, thank you for making this happen for us. You are such a huge resource yourself, and such a great human being. And I got to meet Jamie through one of our trainings. And she was one of those people who comes along who says, "Put me in, coach." Use me. How can I do more? And this is one of those examples of it. Jamie just making the connection for us. So I got to give you that shout out for sure. It's great to see you. So just a little bit about me and Adventure Recovery. So I founded Adventure Recovery 7 years ago. Officially launched it, I should say, 7 years ago. And my vision behind this model was simply based on the fact and the frustration, quite frankly, of what I've seen in the fields of mental health, substance use, treatment, and prevention. And my main thrust of the vast majority of my work has been with young adults and teens. I've worked with all age groups, but it's a big focus on that population. And by the way, my most important credential is that I'm a professional adolescent. I get paid to play. And I think Jamie will vouch for me. I do a pretty good job of it. So the idea here really was born out of the frustration of seeing so many of our institutions and the way we engage young people is really pretty archaic, in my opinion, especially the mental health field. And it's no criticism of practitioners. I want to be very clear about that. I believe practitioners are the soul of the support system that we have. Being a recovering administrator, I'm speaking more to our systems of education, our systems of treatment, our systems of prevention, our systems of government, our systems of lack of environmentalism. Really don't support young people as they are. We support them as we think they should be. And I think that's across the board. So adventure recovery is really, truly two fundamental concepts put together: adventure and recovery. And I'm giving you this little bit of a background for the standpoint of the topic and what I hope to be a conversation and not just me talking at you. We don't define anyone's adventure, nor do we define anyone's recovery. Those are our two core tenets, as well as our title of our business, if you will. We believe every human being deserves the right, and it is their birthright to define those two things for themselves. And we ask people often, people often ask us, do we need to be in recovery to participate in your programs? And we say no, but by the time you're done, you'll probably identify as a person in recovery. Because if you've all survived COVID, which if you're on this Zoom right now, you're a survivor, and the lockdown and the social stresses that came with it, you qualify. You've recovered a part of yourself. This webinar series, Born Out of COVID, is a great example of recovery, where we take a negative and turn it into a positive. We take old energy and turn it into new energy for learning and for change and for growth. And what I find so much of our systems to be placed, we place too much attention on the diagnosis. We place too much attention on the negative, on the problem. We all know the statistics. They suck, right? Simple. The statistics around mental health, the statistics around substance use and substance misuse and substance abuse. All of these statistics are just, the bad numbers are all going up and the good numbers are all going down. So in river rescue, which is an area that I specialize in as a trainer, as well as an athlete and participant in whitewater, we have a saying, and it's very serious. It's a directive where we only point positive. So if someone is in a whitewater environment, and those of you who've had the privilege of standing around some big rapids and see the power of the river is going to have its way with you if you don't know how to navigate it. So it's best to always point positive in where you want people to go, especially in a rescue scenario. Because if you point at the obstruction or you point at the hazard, our instinct takes over, right? We're in a heightened state, and we're going to swim right into what you're pointing at. So I hope that makes sense to everybody, right? So our whole concept of why nature as a healer, why nature as the best medicine there is because nature fundamentally points positive. Now, there's argument here, a lot of conservationists on this call who are going to probably challenge me on this, and I hope to do. Nature is this perfect machine of life and death, right? Of the old making use of, or the new making use of the old, right? But it does so in such a way that's relatively effortless. I really wanted to be in the environment that's behind me today and not in my truck, but I am able to look out straight across from me at this beautiful little forest. And I can tell you, most of what I see on the ground is invasive. And then most of the trees I see standing above it is a healthy forest. And the two are in competition for space. But the reason the forest is healthy is because the forest has been working together as an ecosystem, interspecies wise, for much longer than the field in front of it. So the invasives are trying, right? They're trying to get a hold on that forest, and they will, they'll make their way in there. But the forest ecosystem itself is so healthy because it's a mutually supportive environment, and it's all quote unquote pointing positive. It's all fundamentally supporting each different species is supporting the next in some way, shape, or form. Even those that are, relatively, destroying one another. There is this symbiosis occurring. So backing that all up to why nature as a healer, why nature as a tool for mental health, and why this is my path or this is my calling. So I was severely depressed, severely anxious, severely suicidal as a young person and as a teenager. And the solution I had for those issues was substance use. And by the way, if anyone's curious why people use substances, I think some of you have an idea, because they work. They're effective until they're not. And why people use negative coping mechanisms to resolve their mental health issues and their challenges, because they work until they don't, right? So our coping mechanisms really are a natural response to an unnatural environment, right? An unnatural state within our environment. So it's really easy to break it down, right? From a ecological perspective, when we look at, we react to these causes and conditions, and we use what's most readily available. When it stops working is where the problem really lies, where the challenges really explode and become exponential. So for me, that was at 22 years old, being in a really, really bad space. And luckily for me, I was given the gift of going to treatment. And the treatment program I went to was a very simple retreat model based in the 12 steps. Those of you who are not familiar, the 12-step fellowships like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, there's about 80 different anonymouses nowadays. But the fundamental idea was, your problem is the way you think and perceive your environment and the way you react to it. And your solution is to come into a new relationship, into a new community of like-minded souls who are going to help guide you through the environment and to help you create a new environment for yourself and for others. That's a very abbreviated version of that process, but that's what they gave me. And they also gave me a job because I happen to be a cook, and they needed a cook because one of the cooks got drunk and the place was run by all the former residents. So I got to stay in this, what I call protective custody, for a full year. The setting you see behind me in this screen or whatever isn't the exact location, but very close by. And that was where I spent literally, I'd say 10 out of 15 hours in the day is in the woods like this at 20 years old, just running around, just trying to find my space, find my place. And I got a mentor who took me out and taught me how to rock climb, and he taught me how to whitewater kayak, and he taught me how to skydive, and he taught me how to mountain bike, and he taught me how to quote unquote live sober or live free of my dependence on these negative coping mechanisms and create new coping mechanisms. He taught me the gift and the freedom of failure, to try, expecting to fail. He taught me the joy of looking like an idiot trying something new, and how fun that actually is when you don't take yourself so seriously. And then my community began to expand from there, and my opportunities to be of service to grow into improve my environment, improve the ecosystem around me. So I'm a natural learner, I'm a natural inquisitive mind, but I'm not at all comfortable in what I perceive to be a very unnatural learning environment, which is most institutions. Again, why this is hard for me, this type of model. So instead of going back to college, I decided I'm going to go out for outdoor leadership training and experiences, because those credentials are all immersive. 3 days, 5 days, 10 days of immersive technical skills development and soft skills development. So all of that came together fundamentally to give me the gift of a lifestyle that's very sustainable. We have a running joke: the difference between an outdoor educator and a pizza is a pizza can feed a family of 4. So part of our mission, Venture Recovery, is to change that. We try to pay people a little better than that. And to raise awareness that everyone has access to nature, no matter how isolated in the concrete jungle they may be. There's always some green that you can get your literal hands on, and get your eyes on, you can get your arms around, and begin to pay attention to how it's adapting to its environment and thriving, right? And then grow from there, right? And then find the next bigger green thing and the next bigger green space. And if we naturally give ourselves permission to explore these areas more deeply, and then where we come in is we train people to do this and to take others very mindfully and thoughtfully beyond the trail systems, right? There's a lot of negative that's coming out of COVID, where all these people have flooded the national parks and the state parks and the easy access places. But I can tell you, if you go just a tiny bit further than the easy access, there's nobody out there. There's nobody out there because they're afraid of it. They still don't have the skills or the knowledge to go deeper. So that's what we believe, is the best process. So that's a little bit my story, a little bit of the Venture Recovery story. But ultimately, we, Amber had the idea, well, let's put the question out to you all. How do you do it? How does everyone who's on this call, who was naturally drawn to the topic, how do you spend time outside, and why? What's it doing for you? So I don't know if anybody would like to chime in right off the bat and share a little bit about your own personal practice. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, feel free to put in the chat or unmute yourself if you'd like to answer.
I'll go ahead and start. Maybe that'll get the ball rolling, maybe. Essentially at first, it seemed to me that it was about play. It was a place to play. Always, always, always a place to play. Climb, jump, get dirty. That's just how my connection began. And then later on, as being in institutions, right? Work institutions, educational institutions, and you have symptoms of, the symptoms of being in those institutions, right? Which can lead to, low mental health and those kinds of struggles and negative coping skills. I continually found myself going back out to intentionally and with purpose, and with knowledge of understanding neuroscience and your central nervous system and how important and connected those things are. And I don't know if that really answered the question, Tim, but I guess that's why. It's not the how I do it, it's the why I do it. But I talked, so now it's somebody else's turn.
Thank you, Jamie. And I think the why is almost more important than the how, right? Right.
Let's see. Thanks, Jamie, for that. Thanks for getting the ball rolling. Sydney mentioned gardening, painting, and learning. That's excellent. Those are 3 of mine as well. Christy mentioned, I moved from living downtown out to an acreage, and the healing sounds of the birds in the morning and the cicadas at night have made such a difference for my family. There's some cool research behind the neuroscience of bird songs and what it does to our nervous system. So that's very cool. Anne mentioned,
And
oh, go ahead, Tim.
no, please keep going.
Anne mentioned, I love to go out and look for the smallest details, insects, smells, sounds, use the environment to open all my senses. Then I like to look for complex things in that setting. Ooh, that's a good one. Excellent.
Yeah, and I want to jump on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne, for that. So we have a technique we is not ours, by the way. It's ancient, but we call it the sit spot. And I strongly encourage this, as if I had any prescribing power whatsoever, this would be the, deeply ingrained in my prescription pad that I wouldn't have to keep writing it. It's that important. So a sit spot is a simple action and practice of going out as often as you can, daily, multiple times a day, ideally, where all you see is that green, all right, or that pure nature awareness, where the small then becomes more complex. So I really love that, Anne. Where we realize we belong in it. And it's not meditation. Meditation is a different practice, and I'm not saying it's not similar, because it's very similar. There's a welcoming of the mind. There's a welcoming of the thoughts that will present as you sit still in these spaces, and your awareness grows more and more about how nature and rhythm and bird song and patterns, for instance, we spend a lot of time on these screens, and screens are actually made up of pixels. Pixels are a form of geometrical repetitive shape. Well, where our eyes actually perceive in fractals, and the difference is a fractal is a expansive, right? It's a series of expansive shapes, right? It's the Fibonacci sequence. It's that continuous reproduction of useful space, right? And so we're drawn to fractals. We're not drawn to pixels. Pixels is just unfortunately, the best thing we've come up with besides the fractal, right? So it's a natural reset for just watching the way things work in nature and just being observant of the way it's moving. And what happens when that reset in the mind and in the physiological ecosystem is we turn on all of our positive hormones and our positive neurotransmitters that ultimately the negative coping mechanisms are trying to activate as well. So it's a example for me, a really good example of why just doing it, just making it a conscious part of the day can make a huge difference. So thank you again, Anne, for that example.
Yeah.
So
excellent.
Yeah,
we have so many now. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Would you like me to read them, Tim, or tell me how you'd like? Because we've got some excellent. I'm taking time to read through them, but
yeah, my problem is I'll start reading all of them, and then
I
I'll
know.
just be lost. I'll be lost, and I'll be like, wait, I want to go do that.
It's
I want to go
clear
do that.
it's clear that it's really important. It seems it's very important. Maybe something undervalued and something that's not often articulated, at least in my space or in the space of conservation education, in the field, in the way that we do it, in the historical way that we do it. It's not really, I don't see it spoken about and articulated in the way, but like it's all out there. Nature is essential for people's mental health in a very personal, intimate way that I feel that we don't speak to a lot. So this is really great to read this.
Absolutely. And what you just mentioned too about conservation, right? So the study of conservation, right? So those of you who are conservationists, put the air quotes out there. I'm assuming that you've all put a lot of time and attention into your education, and the environment of that education for you all has luckily been outside for a portion, right? For a large portion, considering what most people's educations are mostly indoors, right? And then their profession. Yet we still take those inside parameters outside with us as we study nature, right? because we have to put everything in its box. Literally, right? How many of you have had to trap some insects or trap some, creepy crawlies, some swimming ones, some wing, right? We got to catch them and then hold them in a box, and so we can study them, right? And what we know about just the way the brain works and the way we study things is we have our own biases, right? So the observer versus the student, right? The observer versus the scientist is a way to get back the childhood playfulness and childlike wonder that makes us feel safe in the world, right? Awe is something else that's been studied really quite amazing. It's another one of these areas now where nature, the birdsong thing, there was a big thing in the New York Times that came out recently, right? There's all these like weekly news articles that are pointing to these bigger studies that are being done about the benefits of nature, the health and wellness benefits, the mental health benefits, and not just the benefits, but the actual cures, literal, right? So there are people that are using experiences outdoors to cure chronic illness, including mental illness. And cure is a strong word, right? For people who struggle with ongoing, repetitive, reoccurring symptomology associated with mental illness. But it's happening. And people are truly finding maybe remission is more accessible. But it's not surprising to me that as we're pointing positive towards this solution of nature, it's always been there, instead of trying to just study it as its own separate thing, and now we embody it and our place in it, people are becoming more healthy. And I also believe there's an environmental activism component to the word recovery and outdoor therapy, if you will, which is when you give a person who has struggled so long and so hard with their substance use disorder or their mental health disorder, who finally finds a pathway of recovery for themselves, they become some of the most eager people you will ever meet to make their world a better place, make their environment a better place, make their community a stronger, more healthy, more healing place. So if we do all that work outside, instead of what we joke around in 12-step fellowships, instead of just church basements, maybe if we did the work outside, it would directly affect our relationship to nature, and therefore we'd all be better environmentalists. Now that's a theory at this point. And I just recently actually came across a study, and I do have a PowerPoint here, and I'm just going to throw it up in the last 5 minutes so y'all can, read it, download it, however this works. But there's a study about the fact that they're realizing if we're intentional about teaching young people, anyone for that matter, about being outdoors mindfully and the benefits of it, socially, economically, intellectually, spiritually, and mentally, wellness, our whole being. If we're deliberate in teaching them about the birds and the bees on the standpoint of the actual birds and the actual bees, we are actually adding all this additional information just as small sound bites. We are turning our young people into not just observers in scientific minds, we're now turning them into activists. They're going to want to protect these spaces. They're going to want to get off their screens. I have no problem. I have 16-year-old twins. No problem getting my kids off of screens when they know they're going outside. Now, if I say to my kids, get off your screens and go outside, it's not happening. I have to help cultivate the experience for them that makes them want to put the screens down. And again, that's the answer, right? I point positive rather than stop, get off your screens. And by the way, I still do this part too. And the best part is when they do it to me, right? Dad, you're not paying any attention to what I'm saying to you. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I have my screen in front of me. I can't. Nah. But so I apologize if I'm, ping-ponging all over the place here, but I'm really interested in why you all showed up today.
Yeah, excellent.
We don't talk about mental health enough. We don't talk about it. It's stigmatized. We are ashamed of our struggles as a species. We are absolutely insane as a species. The definition of insanity, of doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. It is our cultural reality. So to be nervous about it, I get it, but this is a safe space. So if there's something anyone in the room really feels like there's a question, how do we do a better job of accessing this energy and this healing power? Please, I don't want to just ramble on here.
I see, and forgive me, there's so much amazing responses from people, so I'm reading through them, but I did see just a question from Lona and then Emily kind of bouncing off of that, but she said, I teach middle school science. There's been so much focus on social and emotional health of our students, but spending time in nature has not been a component. Where can I find resources or research on nature as a healer I can share with our Blue Team leaders so I can promote adding this to our curriculum? And Mona, that's something that our division thinks about and is kind of in that circle a bit too. So I'll try to send along some things that I can think of, but Tim, feel free to answer that question. And Emily said she's in the same boat and she's curious.
Awesome. The resources I can point you to directly, the Association for Experiential Education, AEE.org. They are a phenomenal resource for programs, trainings, conferences. There's regional conferences, national conferences. They tend to draw the kind of PE teacher in the challenge course world and the ropes courses and that sort of thing. But they're gaining more and more of the environmental studies and combining the two. And now there has been for a long time, but there's also the therapeutic adventure group that's associated with Association for Experiential Education. So if you get to that, I'm sorry.
It's Association for Experiential Education. Is that what you said?
That's right. AEE.org. Yep, .org. There's another one, which is the Outdoor Behavioral Health Council. And the council is, forgive me, because there's also the Outdoor Behavioral Health. I'm going to forget it. If you just start Googling it, you'll get there. Outdoor Behavioral Health Council is a group of wilderness mostly based treatment programs and outdoor behavioral health treatment programs that has since spun off an outdoor behavioral health sciences and study arm. And you know what I'll do, since I have my
Jamie dropped the AEE and I just dropped the one you just mentioned.
OBH. Okay, great.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
These both those institutions or organizations have national conferences and regional conferences. So give me a second. I just want to find the.
While you're looking for that, Tim, I'll also add Children in Nature Network is an excellent organization. If anyone's familiar with the work Last Child Left in the Woods by Richard Louv, this organization was kind of born. That was the genesis of this organization, and it is excellent. It's a bit more education focused than treatment necessarily. However, they have really good, they have great conferences, great webinars, great resources, and it's very reasonable as well.
It's a great, they have a great research database as well. Yes. If you're looking for studies done on that topic.
And one more I'll add, Tim, while you're looking is
yes, please.
Also the North American Association for Environmental Education, NAAEE. Absolutely excellent. It's another similar. I really love working with them. They're very abundance mindset. They have they just give these resources. I think they have a research library as well. And there's a lot of focus on equity, inclusion in the outdoors, and also health in children and adults in the relationship with the natural world.
Wonderful.
Go ahead,
And
Tim.
the OBH is the Outdoor Behavioral Healthcare Center, is located in University of New Hampshire, but they are the research arm of OBH.
Excellent. That's
Yeah.
great. Thanks for that question.
And ultimately, I think the question is a really, it's part of the challenge of what I was saying earlier about the way we compartmentalize everything. We have a culture now that is removed. There's so many adults now who are in teaching and helping professions who themselves were removed from the natural world as youth. They just didn't have the outside experience because of screens, because of technology, right? We've really seen a huge decline of people who are now in these roles that they don't actually understand that there is a correlation. So we have to kind of wrestle it back, you know. A lot of the private, and part of the reason why we work with a lot of private schools and not public schools is exactly that reason. We get a lot of calls from private institutions saying, we'd love to hire you to create curriculum for us, which we do. And then we get public school educators say, hey, can you come do it for our school? And we go and we say, yeah, so we're going to take them out of school. We can't take them out of school. Can't you do it inside? Right. So that's part of the challenge, is we have to reorient our administrators, and we have to reorient our the folks who are writing the curriculums for the institutions themselves to why being outside. And by the way, this is back to that really effective small step stuff of, just let's have this meeting outside. Let's have this conversation outside. Let's go for a walk and talk, right? And by the way, here's a trick for all the folks who work with the patriarchy. I'll raise my hand on that one. If you're walking and talking next to a person who identifies as a man, he's going to listen to you better than if you're sitting across from him.
Wow, thank you for that tip, Tim.
It is, and by the way, someone had to teach me that one, right? It's part of the hardwiring of male aggression, quite frankly. It's just you'll get further, literally and figuratively, right? You'll get further if you do a walk and talk. And that's also the case with adolescent. Why we see more adolescent males going into typically what's considered traditional wilderness therapy settings, because it's there's a stigma around why boys should go and girls maybe shouldn't, but there's also they tend to respond more to it from the standpoint of there isn't a lot of this face-to-face interaction like an office or like a therapy office, so they tend to be more receptive. And I argue all the time, it's like my daughter and I have much better conversations walking talking than we do sitting down face to face. So I do think gender bias is in there for sure, but I think it'll help in general, especially with the folks that are making decisions.
It's excellent. Thanks for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
This has been fantastic so far. We have about a little over 15 minutes left. If you want to share your slides, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, let me throw that up.
Oh, Dakota has something.
Can I ask
Please.
one more question? So it's a little bit sort of out of left field, kind of almost an opposite approach, but in something I feel like I've experienced, probably everyone on this call has experienced, and something I sort of hear anecdotally from older youth is particularly I think going outside, experiencing nature, you kind of have the benefit, you feel some of the good effects from being out in nature, but there's also a little bit of attention given to the harm that we have done to nature. And I think so, like the production of eco-anxiety and things like that. How have you addressed that or approached that in your work?
I just want to get that right. The production of eco-anxiety.
Sorry, yeah, I mean, maybe like the production is not the best phrasing, but
No,
think,
no. I just want to make sure I'm
good.
tracking it. Can
Mhm.
you just get into it a little bit more? Because I think I'm going to love this and steal it from you, by the way.
okay, please feel free. I think just sort of for an example. So I actually just this past July got to go out to Wyoming with a Nebraska organization called Go Beyond. They do this type of work. They send kids out, have an immersive experience in nature. And I loved it. It was wonderful. But one of the first things that I thought of returning to Nebraska was we are missing so much here. We have degraded this environment. We've kicked everything out. We know all those things that I think part of it, I can still go outside of my backyard or go on a walk in a state park and fully feel that benefit and enjoy it. And I think that, I don't want to undergrade that, but there's also a constant reminder of what we have done, the negative impacts we've created. And I think that youth, particularly older youth, really feel that as well.
Yes.
And so I'm just kind of, I think there's a lot of new literature and research and things coming up about that, but I'm just curious for your perspective.
Great question. And again, thank you for that, Dakota. It's back to that very simple introduction of these are safe spaces. They don't feel safe. For those of us who have been raised with the anxiety around it's destroying us, it's fighting back, right? I mean, the orcas are taking out boats, and sea otters or river otters are attacking young mothers. We have all these stories that are in the news feed that are creating that anxiety, right? But if we just encourage all of us together collectively, family systems, community systems, multi-generational examples of anywhere groups meet, to take the conversation outside, be in it and of it, and allow for it to be present in the conversation, people, and acknowledge when you catch people acknowledging it, right? So the topic can be, hey, we're going to talk about, I don't know, the Kardashians, but we're going to have a conversation outside, right? And when you catch the person who's now no longer really interested in the Kardashians because they're looking at this beautiful wildflower that just they never noticed before, right? This is, I think, the answer to us lowering the anxiety. We also do a lot of work with folks who've been to wilderness treatment therapy that it was actually traumatic, right? The experience wasn't therapeutic, it was traumatic. So we wind up taking those folks out because of our philosophy of everyone defines their own adventure and everyone defines their own recovery. So we literally give them all the options of how do you want to re-engage with nature and see that it can be a safe space for you. And, of course, bugs bite, bees sting. Those are, by the way, the most dangerous animals that we encounter on a daily basis. And most of the other stuff, the lions, tigers, and bears, they kind of leave us alone. We're not that interesting to them. So, and again, what can we do in the smaller conversations, right? Just by being outdoors to check our own awareness as well. So I hope that answered your question, or even I took more of what you said as almost a statement, and I loved it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Dakota, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. And that's something that we encounter a lot in this field is we want to share the love of nature with our students and the people we work with, but also there is a lot of grief right now as well that we have to address. Sydney had something that she wanted to share as well on this topic. Sydney, would you like to share? And then also after Sydney, I have a favorite quote of mine that addresses this topic that really helps me ground in my feelings on this, Dakota, that I'd like to share. But Sydney, would you like to share?
Yeah, so I work in urban agriculture. And then I personally have a permaculture and like environmentalism bit to my gardening and agriculture. And one thing that I have felt really helped me as a very anxious person deal with some eco anxiety is learning about the systems that nature uses to heal, and seeing
Love it.
how fast nature can heal itself if you just aren't fighting it all the time. So, when I see people post about like, oh, I'm afraid of this insect or these isopods are eating all of my garden, I like to, see that as a process of healing rather than a destructive process I'm fighting against. So, kind of coming into interactions with that mindset helps me out a lot. That's just, I thought I'd share.
Love that.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
Sydney.
Right.
That's really helpful.
Nature, the great, does a lot of cleaning up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share a quote that when I think about eco anxiety and what we face as a species and what I face, even to the kids that I teach, but also my 6-year-old who I have who loves nature more than anything in the world. And he, even as a 6-year-old, I can't watch Planet Earth with him these days without him, crying and really experiencing distressing emotions and the things that he's seeing. And so having to navigate that. This quote is by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's from Braiding Sweetgrass, the book that she wrote about integrating indigenous knowledge with Western science. She says, even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. And that quote just, helps me through that.
Mic drop on that one. Yeah. That's it right there. We go to nature to heal because nature is constantly in the state of healing itself. It is the answer, right? Or the solution to our dis-ease is to be fully immersed in ease. And the green spaces give us that. This has been awesome. I wish I could hang out with all of you all day outside, and can't tell you how much I appreciate all your time. I do not feel compelled to have to share the PowerPoint, by the way. It's got some information.
Yeah, do what you need to, Tim. Also, if you'd you can share the slides later and I can send it to him, whatever you'd like to do.
And I think I'd rather do that just to give anyone else who feels the voice, if you want to be heard and you have thoughts and ideas.
Desiree asked what the book was, and that's Braiding Sweetgrass by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. If you haven't read it, highly, highly, highly recommend it. Feel so strongly about it that this is my go-to gift for people at this point. I want to put it in all the hotel rooms kind of situation. So, and there's a one for youth too, where you can, you can't see it. You can do, you can have it as like a youth book club and things like that. So it's really great.
It is a wonderful resource. So come on, no more questions, comments?
Yeah, any other questions for Tim on this subject?
All right.
Are you trying to talk, Christy?
How about this? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry, I just switched mics. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I now lead an environmental nonprofit. So not doing traditional social work, but I'm curious, like, as far as when we think about education for professionals, for people who might go into therapy or things like that, where are we at in advocating to incorporate this type of training and education? Because I agree with everything you're saying 100%, and we need to do things differently. Any ideas on that or thoughts?
Yes. So forgive me. I made the mistake of clicking out of Zoom, and now I have no idea how to see all of you.
We can still see you.
All right. That's great. So if you see me just kind of doing this, it's
Yeah.
not just ADHD. What was your name again? I'm sorry. Renee?
Christy.
Christy.
Yes.
Christy. Yeah. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for making the leap. And taking the risk to get out there and use the outdoors. So back to AEE, and by the way, I'm not a paid sponsor by any means of AEE, but they now have an adventure therapist credential that you can tack on to your existing licensure.
Huh.
It's a step, to be honest. It's a step in the direction for advocacy. For more of this type of training. There's also a they now have a peer support specialist version as well. So for the non-clinical peers, and we're big on our whole route to adventure recovery is a peer support model, but we've also actually, it's one of those. I started adventure recovery because of two of my mentors said, if not you, who, and if not now, when.
Yeah.
Right. So they put me on the spot, so I did it. And now we're getting the same questions from other practitioners. I want in, right? I want to do what you do. I don't want to do what I do anymore.
Yeah.
And I pushed back and I said, well, I want you to do what you do the way we do it.
Yeah.
So we've literally just launched a clinical arm. So we will be hosting our first clinical adventure recovery coach training. Which is
so cool.
Combining the recovery coach model, the adventure recovery coach model, with the foundations of clinical practice. And the key is give people just these fundamental skills around being outside mindfully and skillfully, and safely doing more quote unquote traditional therapy. The kicker is you do it outside. You don't get to do it inside. You always you always take your client out. So it's growing, and this is part of the beauty of where we are. And I do believe it's a direct response of nature, using us, right? So that this, back to the eco-anxiety, that nature is realizing, well, we have a whole bunch of folks out here who already know how to help others be safer and more comfortable in their environments. Let's use them. Right? Let's use them. So I think nature is pushing us in this direction. And this is why we're seeing so much about the news around the benefits of being outside.
Yeah, well,
so,
to your point earlier, when you said, people are more likely to talk, or your daughter or son, when you're out taking a walk. I worked with kids who were in the foster care system, and they always told me the most profound things when we were riding in the car. Like, not, they're in the back seat, I'm in the front seat. So sitting just face to face in an office.
Yeah, you almost drive off the road, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what'd you say?
Yeah,
exactly.
So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, for us, it's on the trail, it's in the canoe, it's on the kayaks, it's on the raft, it's on the paddle boards, it's on the mountain bikes, it's on belay. I mean, I've had full breakthroughs while people are sitting in their harnesses, 40 feet on a cliff. It's powerful medicine. So thank you for that, and keep going, keep doing the work. And if we can be of assistance, please reach out.
Excellent. I did see, I feel like I have to plug this. I saw someone say, I wish there was like a group or something to chat through these things. I think something that Jamie and I talk about a lot is when this is a little personal, but when we shine our light and our authentic selves, we're able to find the others. and we're able to find those people and those humans who understand these things and who are thinking about these things. And often it's more people than you think. You know, we're all having these kind of thoughts right now, and just some of us may be pretending we're not. So it's really helpful. I love that kind of community building, and I appreciate, you know, the need for that. One of the things I wanted to plug is NACE, which is the Nebraska's Alliance for Conservation Environmental Education, which I'm also associated with. We're putting on an annual conference, a second annual conference in February. It'll be the Nebraska Environmental Education Conference in February at Ponca State Park, and the save the date will go out very soon. And so if you're interested in something like this, of course, it's bigger than just nature and healing. It's also, but it's all holistically connected. That might be a great space for you to attend. Dakota, I see hand claps. I know he came in February for our first one. And it was incredible. And still, like, the way that we were able to have these kind of discussions of what you're speaking to, Tim, in person, it was really phenomenal. So something to be on the lookout for. But I agree. I like more communities and spaces where we're able to have these discussions. Maybe we'll throw a presentation proposal to you, Tim, and maybe you'll be willing to come all the way to Nebraska for this. Obviously, we're hungry for it here. So,
And when the Whitewater Park's open too, you know, so you can do
in
double.
Norfolk, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jamie knows. So, by the way, my drug of choice as a recovering substance abuser is more. Right. So now my substance of choice is Whitewater. So Jamie just, you know, use the old trick. Just put that hook out there. She knows how to get me. Again, I just want to thank you, Amber, Jamie, for putting this together, for inviting Adventure Recovery to be a part of this ongoing conversation about conservation. For everyone who showed up today, I'm really thrilled to see so many interested folks engaging and all of your comments. If Amber, if there's a way to capture those comments, and
I was copying and pasting them into a Word doc because they were so incredible. So
wonderful.
hope that's
Could
cool.
we share that somehow?
Sure.
I'm very open to some type of a listserv or group share around this particular topic, and the folks who would like to be involved, we will happily add you to our mailing list. We are a for-profit outdoor education organization focused on mental health and substance use recovery. With that said, we're all outdoor educators. So we put all of our money back into the sustainability of our organization and sustainability of our community and the sustainability of the spaces that we use. So no one's getting rich doing what we're doing, but we're all very enriched by it. And the reason I make that emphasis is we use our email communication very sustainably. We don't just bombard people with, you know, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. We try to use it as an educational tool as much as possible, also while giving people access to the activities and the events that we're participating in. So if anyone would like to be a part of that mailing list, if you go to our website, I think there's even a pop-up now that just, you know, join our website or join our mailing list kind of thing. So I don't want to impose it upon anyone, but please, if you're interested in learning more about us and how we do things, check us out. And I do have to give one hard plug. We have a rock climbing guide training coming up in September, and you don't have to be a rock climbing guide. That's the whole point of it. If you're even new to rock climbing and you're interested in the sport, we're doing it. All of our trainings are from the perspective of using nature as a healing mechanism. So yes, we're teaching technical skills in rock climbing and how to safely manage a climbing site. And we're doing it all from the perspective of healing and wellness and mental health. And it's a really unique training model. And Jamie's our best example of the fact that it works, because we wouldn't all be together here if she hadn't put us all.
It's
So,
an
thank
incredible
you.
experience. I did the water guide training. It's an incredible experience. So if anybody's interested, definitely reach out.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tim. That was That was easily one of my favorites so far of doing this for 3 years, and I really appreciate
Thank you.
all the people want to be talking about this. You can tell they're ready for this conversation. So thanks for giving your time today and creating that space to discuss this. Hopefully we can hear more from you in the future. You can see Nebraska is excited about this topic. So other than that, it was great to meet you. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And I hope you get outside today and find your medicine for sure.
I insist.
Tim insists. So
That's an order.
okay. All right. And I'll be sending an email to everyone I've got loads of resources to send to you today. So you'll have the recording and evaluation and a lot of the resources talked about today. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Thank you.